Hello, this is Paul Nisi from FrontTowardsGamer.com with Comic Station, and we are here at the Philadelphia Comic Con for 2013, and I am standing here with Pat Shand from Zenescope. He is the staff writer. Why don't you tell us some of your previous works before we start going into the big event that we're covering?
Sure, yeah. Well, before Zenescope, I was working for IDW. I did a short Angel story, Joss Whedon's Angel, and then quickly after that, I met up with Zenescope. I did a 1,000 Ways to Die story, about 5 of those in their graphic novel, and I started slowly on some Grimm Fairy Tales titles until Robin Hood and Godstorm, my 2 miniseries. Those really blew up, especially Robin Hood.
Robin Hood's very, very popular.
Yeah, definitely. That's become one of the flagship titles, which has been pretty awesome. So we started with those titles and then moved over to some of the bigger, more event-driven books like Unleashed we premiered. It was an idea that Raven and I came up with together that we developed with Joe Brusher and Ralph Tedesco, and it's this big company-wide event that's really classic monsters, classic horror monsters versus fairy tales, which is it's a pretty cool concept, and I think that every issue that readers pick up, they'll see more in-depth stories. They'll see that we're including the Greek gods, we're including all these legendary characters into this big event that we're structuring as if it's a superhero event, with all these tie-in miniseries focusing on our new characters, classic monsters. We have vampires, the eternal, demons, the unseen, werewolves, the hunger, zombies, the cursed, and hunters, the shadowlands. All these series that tie in while also telling their own stories. But what readers are going to see is that this is not like a Secret Invasion from Marvel where you have to read every title to get the overall story. Instead of that, you get 6 individual stories that all pay off in their own ways. So we think it's a more rewarding experience, we think, that really highlights the independent nature of Zenescope Comics.
Yeah, we've covered the Unleashed #1. We also covered the Vampires #1 as well. And like I said in the reviews, each one are standalone. You can read each one separately, but you can get a lot more background, not just the characters, but of the world, like what's happening by reading the whole series. It's a big event. It's across the Grimm Fairy Tales universe. So is this, like I said, it's a good starting, jumping off point, but is this like everything before it led up to this point, and this is going forward, and this is going to change the world as far as what this event is going to carry forward?
Totally, yeah. All the new characters that we're introducing, those are not just Unleashed specific characters. Van Helsing is sticking around. All the characters who survived this series, and that's not all of them, original and returning, will be sticking around. We're building a new part of this universe, and it's going to cohesively blend into what we have built before. And I will say that we've been building toward this for a while, but also it does, you can read Unleashed as an uninitiated reader. You can come into this series as someone who's never read a Zenescope book before, and you'll be cool, you know. But we do hope that it will inspire readers, new readers, to want to check out the titles that have been going on for a while. But certainly everything changes after Unleashed #6. You know, it's the big finale, and going forward, nothing's the same. And that should be how every event is. You know, we're not going to buy back these big changes. You know, issue 1, a major character death. Same issue, a major character returns from having been missing, gone for over a year at this point. You know, so what we're doing is we're playing for keeps, and we're showing that we're not scared to make big changes to this universe.
Awesome. And what's the overall image for Unleashed? Is it to now, like you said, you brought in a whole bunch of the classical monsters, the vampires, the werewolves, and that's going to stay? Is that, how are they interacting with the creatures that have already been there, the Highborns, and the False Bloods?
It's a great question. They are interacting through violence.
They're not all getting along. No. It's not all monsters together.
No, especially in books like Vampires and Demons, you're going to see that these characters are not there to play. You know, the being who is the unnamed protagonist, the unnamed antagonist of sorts of Unleashed, you'll see that he has his own motive for unleashing these characters on the Grimm universe, but they are not all playing toward his end. The demons have a specific goal in mind. The vampires have what they want to do, even though Sumaira, the queen vampire is very much in the being's pocket.
Yeah, she has her own agenda. She's trying to build up her empire back, and
She is, but Unleashed #2 comes out. That came out Wednesday actually, and there's a scene in that book where the being comes to her and goes, "Just so you know, you're going to have to deal with a major loss, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, but to test your faith, I want to see that you'll be ready to lose anything for me, even what I've just given you." And she says, "Of course I'll be able to." So going forward, Samira's faith will be tested over and over, and I think that her character is going through this will flesh her out beyond what could be a one-note villain, you know, because she is his right-hand man. She's the vampire queen. She's his she's what the other characters have to get through to get to him, which is a very stereotypical character in some ways, but we're fleshing her out in a way that we think will make her stand out a bit from the other villains.
okay. Yeah, I did like that Unleashed. I mean, you got a good image of her, but with the vampires, that fleshed out. It gave a little bit of the backstory of where she came from.
Yeah.
She wasn't always the queen of the vampires. She wasn't even one of the first.
Yeah.
So it gave background into her. So leaving off on the one vampires, you meet some of the people from her past. So you wonder, how is that going to play for her mentality? Like,
oh, totally, yeah. The tie-ins are a bit tricky because you have in Vampires, you have Samira meeting the Black Death in her castle, and in Unleashed #2, something happens that shows that all of Vampires is set before Unleashed #2 or during.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a timeline that readers are going to have to figure out as they go along, and I really do want to. I have my master timeline that I want to post on my Tumblr, but it's I don't want to spoil anything because you see Samira with the Black Death in the castle, and then they're not there in Unleashed 2. So I think it's less important to focus on that, more important to focus on the emotional ride about how these characters get to where they're going, than the where they end up. You know.
Okay. So like you said, each one of these tie in together. They all have this overarching story that you're leading from point A to point B, with a whole bunch of subpoints in between.
Yes.
Are you thinking, say, with your timeline, is there anything in the plans for like an Unleashed volume where it's going to collect everything in that timeline that should be read in that way?
God,
and then where a good jumping off point to continue on reading from that?
You know, there could be. There are no plans. We plan to put out Unleashed Volume 1 collecting Unleashed 0 through 3 in a short story. Unleashed Volume 2 collects 4 through 6. Then we're going to have trades that collect the miniseries. We're probably going to pair vampires and werewolves into one book, demons and zombies into one book, and hunters into one book. So we don't have we don't want you to have to buy 7 trades to get the whole story.
Fair enough.
You know, that's not fair. So we're kind of blending them in a way that will be, it will make sense for how it's supposed to be read. You know, werewolves and vampires are coming out along the same time together.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. And finally, just to leave off, we had recently in the last comic station we did the Realm Knights.
Sure.
And of course, there's a note in there since a lot of the characters are being pulled in from over the universe again. There's notes that this is before Unleashed #0,
Yes.
so forth. Are there other volumes or other series that are keeping the continuity of Unleashed
Yes,
in
absolutely.
mind?
Grimm 86 through 88 all take place during Unleashed. In fact, in my first draft of Grimm 86, I opened with Belinda, Sela, and Van Helsing in the Inner Sanctum researching the being. You know, but then I was thinking, and I talked to Joe, we both decided it was a bit too dependent on Unleashed. Unleashed takes place over the course of over a year. You know, 0 takes place, just say, in the beginning of a year, and by the time Unleashed 6 rolls around, it's a long while later. So there are titles that take place during this that aren't going to be addressing this, because the idea isn't that Sela is obsessing over the being. You know, she's still living her life.
Yeah.
She is still helping Highborns and False Bloods. So I don't know where Grimm 89 takes place because I'm not writing that one.
Okay.
I can't announce who is writing it yet, but he's the writer who I respect and like a lot as a person. He's taking over the main title with 89, I believe, and I think that's set Etter Unleashed, and I think it should be Etter Unleashed. But 86 through 88 are all during number 2. Number 2 is the big movement. Number 2 carries Unleashed from the beginning all the way to the end almost.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got some hints in number 2 where things are going to go
yeah.
and end up. All right. So thank you very much. Again, this is Pat Shan. He's the writer for Zenescope, leading the Unleashed titles. And read it. Go forward. Again, you can read the Unleashed volumes by itself. But if you really want to get the overall picture, read the tie-ins, the vampires, the werewolves, the demons, and they all add a lot to not just the characters, but to the world. So I really like the series. Me personally, for me it was a jumping off point because I've been a little daunted by how many volumes of Grimm Fairy Tales there are in all the different series. So for me, it was a perfect jumping in point. So again, look forward to more Unleashed coverage here at Comic Station, and thank you very much.
Sure. Actually, I will plug, we're starting a new digital line of comics. We have My Creator-Owned Family Pets #1. It's a story about a young girl who believes that she's destined to be magical and kind of coping with the fact that she's not. And then one day her world turns upside down and her family is turned into animals. So she has to deal with this magical element when she is just beginning to cope with the fact that she's not magic. And it's a very kind of Harry Potter meets My So-Called Life kind of story. And we're going to be doing a lot of these digital books. My editor, Ralph Tedesco, the editor-in-chief, he has an awesome book coming up. It's called Guardians. It has art by an amazing artist. It's a comedy book that we wouldn't normally see from Zenescope, but it's like Superbad meets City of Angels. And that sounds, I'm pitching it terribly, and Ralph is going to probably kill me, fire me or some shit, but it's a great story. I read the first script, I read the whole plot synopsis, and as a fan, I'm looking forward to seeing that, and I'm proud that I'm launching my book alongside his because I think fans are going to really be surprised by the direction we're taking our digital-only books. Digital-first books, I should say.
Digital-first. Yeah, just a note for the Family Pets. I believe I gave it a special notice on one of the comic stations, but it's a funny, entertaining, it's an all ages, and as much as I love Zenescope, they're probably not all ages appropriate by it. So it's really nice to see that. So again, if you have a younger person, this is Family Pets was a really nice, really well done, and I thought it was a great for the younger readers. All right. Thank you. This is Comic Station. Look forward to more from the Philadelphia Comic Con as we go throughout the entire weekend. Thank you very much.